Have you ever wondered who would become US president if none of that political stuff mattered, but just the quality of the logo design? No? Great. Let's get into it. I have collected the logos of 37 candidates and ex-candidates for the 2024 election, but only 32 fit in my knockout round bracket, so let's kick the 5 most ugly ones out. These look like they were made in Word anyway. And yes, this is the Tiger King guy. With that out of the way, welcome to the 2024 logo elections, where only I can vote. These are all our competitors in round 1. We've got lots to do, so let's get started with Hurd versus Sonski. I don't think I have to say much here. One's readable, one's got an illegible fine print, and a pooping bird. Hurd wins. Mike Pence, hey, I know that guy, versus who exactly? Ah, there, if you zoom in. Art Olivier is the candidate. He's a bit shy, so I don't think he actually wants to be president. Pence wins. Terry versus Trump. Oh boy. It's nice that both include the vice candidate, but Terry's second line is such a mess. There's no alignment with the first line of text, and the italic 2024 feels like it's just floating there. Pretty sad, because the Terry logo without the subline would be quite a solid logo. But Trump's logo has quite a lot going on too. There's 6 elements: the stars, the outline, Trump's name, Vance's name, the slogan and the year. It's just too much for a logo. Still, it's not quite as bad as the Terry logo. Trump wins. Lars Mapstad versus Francis Suarez. Lars is the first one in this video to use only his first name. What a chill guy, huh? Suarez's logo really reminds me of Trump, with the text sandwiched in these brackets. But the red-blue gradient on a blue background is very questionable, so I gotta give it to Lars's logo, which is neat and simple. That's also my first name, so I might be biased. Lars wins. Jacob Hornberger versus Vivek Ramaswamy, or just Vivek. The colors are almost the same, as most candidates use the classic stars and stripes colors, but the logo structure couldn't be more different. Super horizontal versus quite vertical. This very long logo is not very practical. Imagine you need to fit it in a browser icon. No chance to make that legible, so you need to use a simplified version. Vivek can just use his V, but what would Jacob do? What would Jesus do? Well, the Statue of Liberty is right there, so probably use that. But that's a very generic visual and probably still too detailed for a very small icon. Vivek's logo is just better than Jacob's in every way, so Vivek wins. Kennedy versus Haley. Yes, you heard right, we got a real Kennedy here, guys. It's the nephew of JFK. What a flex. Neither of these logos is very exciting, neither is exceptionally good or awful, but overall I just like the Kennedy logo better. The blocky structure works well with the colors, but I gotta give minus points for the badly aligned text. They just align things by the edges where they should have used some optical balance. The S should be a little more to the left, and the N should be a lot more to the left, so it aligns with the bottom part of the Y. Despite this, Haley's logo bores me to death, so Kennedy wins. Chase versus Elder. They have a similar font, but they're not quite the same. You can see that in the E's. Now, Chase has an okay word mark, but what is this logo mark? I guess this is a torch that kind of looks like the island of Cyprus. But then what are those wings around it for? It seems very arbitrary and like there's no real strategy behind it. Now, Elder's logo looks much cleaner, and I really like the idea with the falling star. It's way more original than just putting the regular US flag there. So Elder wins. Burgum versus DeSantis, or Skaterbrand versus College Hoodie. And guys, what did I just say about flags? It's not very original, but DeSantis at least had the brains to simplify the flag. Good luck, Doug, using that logo at a small size. DeSantis wins. So now we're halfway through round 1. If you find it interesting so far, consider subscribing. But let's continue, we still got some banger logos ahead of us. Steen versus Smith, or Jill versus Joshua. They have the same initials, very cool. Now, I'm curious, please tell me how you would read Jill's logo aloud. Because for me the hierarchy is very clearly Jill 2024 Steen. Now the dark green groups the name together, fair enough, but the font size and order of the words matter much more to me. It seems like a very easily avoidable issue, so they could have just swapped the text. While I have strong feelings about Jill's design, I of course can't let Joshua Smith win. I mean, it's funny, but I'm not sure if it's supposed to be funny. Anyway, in a big strike of luck, Steen wins. Dean versus Asa, both using the first names here. But wait a minute. Dean, Phillips for president. What? This gives the impression they're two different people, but they are not. Nani? That is really confusing, and Asa's logo is much nicer anyway, so Asa wins. Biden and Harris versus Harris and Walz. What an awkward situation. Now, of course, Biden isn't running anymore, but that's true for most of the candidates we've looked at so far. So we just included everyone who ran at some point for this election, and that's also Biden. So now we're here in this strange alternate reality where Harris competes against Harris. Now to the logos. I really like Biden's gimmick with the simplified flag as the letter E. Harris's logo is much less fun, it's just plain text. Don't get me wrong, that's not bad. Lots of successful brands have a simple word mark as their logo, but in comparison, I prefer the more fun one. Harris also had much less time to design this, of course, she personally, given that she basically became a main candidate overnight, but still, Biden wins in this case. Palmer versus Perry. Both their word marks are all white. It's really about the rest of the design in this match. I don't love the aesthetic of Palmer's logo mark, but at least it makes sense. The American star, an arrow pointing towards progress. I can also appreciate the clean integration of the arrow as one of the star spikes. In Perry's logo there's this weird slash, and I don't know why it's there. Maybe it has some meaning, but to me it seems like they found the logo too boring before, and so they decided to add this in the background. That is not a good enough reason though. Palmer wins. Bingley versus Williamson. Both use their full names, both have quite a lot of text, but in Williamson's logo it's such an overwhelming wall of text. I think that's because of the blocky structure of this logo. It just seems like a brick to your face. Now Bingley's logo looks much tidier because the slogan is so small, but I think it's too small. You really need this on a big banner to be able to read it. But if they remove the slogan when it wouldn't be readable, fair enough. Now give me a minute to nerd out about this beautiful ligature of the Y and I. A ligature is when two letters that touch get their own design to connect them, often the case in an FI letter combination, for example. So it's usually for letters next to each other, but in this case it's for letters above each other. And it's so nicely executed. Williamson's logo is no match against this. Bingley has to win. Wagner versus Tom Scott? Oh no, Tim Scott. Got my hopes up there.
Just shut up.
Tim, if you're going to make your slogan so tiny, you might as well leave it out. Now, I don't know what to say about Wagner-Wald's logo. It looks like a cheap logo template for a hotel that you can download on Canva or something. Nice try to use some more original colors than red, white, blue, but this ain't it. Scott wins. West versus Stapleton. I don't like either of these, honestly. How many shades of brown do you really need, Corner West? And what is the swoosh even supposed to be, except a gap filler? Now, Stapleton's icon at least has a meaning. It's the S of his last name, and a sort of maze that he'd lead us out of if he became president, I guess. Sadly, the icon is a bit too close to the text, but I still find it better than West's logo. Stapleton wins. Chris Christie versus Claudia de la Cruz and Karina Garcia. I don't know how this happened, but Christie badly messed up the kerning here. The spacing of the letters is so weird, you could read this as Chris Ty instead of Christie. In the other logo, the color and the font immediately make it clear they're running for the socialists, which I think is a swear word in the USA, but it's clearly the better crafted logo. Claudia and Karina win. And that wraps up round 1. Out of the 32 competitors, only 16 remain. So let's get right into round 2. Hurd versus Pence. Firstly, Pence's logo isn't available in a good resolution or as a vector graphic, which is already a bad sign. The design is not awful, but a bit boring in my opinion. Also, the subline feels a bit weak and fragile next to this thick outline. Just make the line thinner. Hurd's design at first glance is also nothing special, but then I discovered that the highlighted R might hint at the Republican Party, which he ran for. That's actually a clever Easter egg. if it's supposed to be that. Hurt wins. Trump versus Lars. I like that Lars's logo doesn't have the typical ingredients we have seen 1,000 times. No red and blue, no stars and stripes, it feels more unique this way. Trump's logo, of course, has become really iconic, but not on the merit of its great design. As I said last round, it's just way too overloaded. 4 lines of text, who has the time to read all that? Lars wins. Vivek versus Kennedy. This is a quick one. As mentioned before, the alignment of the Kennedy logo needs more fine-tuning. Vivek's logo, on the other hand, has no such big technical flaws. Vivek wins. Elder versus DeSantis. They both use the last name along with some reference to the elections. For Elder, it's 24 for the year. For president, for DeSantis, it's the claim. For DeSantis, it's the claim for president. I prefer the simple 24. It's shorter, you don't need this tiny subline, and the meaning is just as clear. Elder wins. Jill versus Acer. Hey, Jill 2024 Steen is back. The visual hierarchy still sucks, so Acer wins. Biden and Harris versus Palmer. Palmer has the advantage of an icon that can be used separately, but still, I don't like that icon. 3 colors plus a gradient in the arrow is just too much for my taste. Biden wins. Bingley versus Scott. What I criticize in both of these are the tiny slogans, so they cancel each other out, I guess. Apart from that, I still love the YI ligature, while Tim Scott's logo seems a bit uninspired. Bingley wins. Stapleton versus Claudia and Karina. I have mixed feelings here. Stapleton's logo is more flexible with the icon, but they just placed it too close to the wordmark. And I only found this low resolution PNG of the logo. The file size is the smallest of all the logos, but that's not what the competition is about. Claudia and Karina win. With that, round 2 is already over. We just have 8 candidates remaining, so it's time for the quarterfinals. Hurt versus Lars. They both played with typography here, incorporating a star in the R and a flame in the A. The star is of course from the American flag. The flame surely has some meaning too. Maybe it's a torch to lead us into a brighter future or something. So no complaints there, but when you zoom out, Lars's slogan gets hard to read because the font is so thin. That's not a problem in Hurt's logo, so I'll vote for that. Hurt wins. Vivek versus Elder. We're back at it with the stars and stripes. They're both well-made logos, so we have to get a bit nitpicky here. Imagine we want to put the logo on something very small, like a pen, and the text would be too small to read. So leave the text, keep the icon. Now, which is more recognizable? One is a falling star and one is the first letter of the candidate's name. That's probably more recognizable. Elder would have to use that logo for a long time for people to learn associating the falling star with him. With that reasoning, I think Vivek has the more adaptive logo. Vivek wins. Acer versus Biden. At this stage, we have to keep looking at the details to find something to criticize. Up until now, I've loved the aesthetic of Acer's logo, but I'm not quite happy with the spacing between the letters. They collide in an unfortunate way, which looks especially bad between the A and S. The other logo doesn't have this problem, so Biden wins. Bingley versus Claudia and Karina. Now, this is a difficult one. Bingley's slogan is way too small and should have been left out, honestly, but his logo looks nice otherwise. Claudia and Karina also have a well-crafted logo. What Bingley has on his side is the star icon, which could be used independently. With the other logo, it's kinda all or nothing. Bingley wins. And that's the quarterfinals already done. We're fast approaching the final, but we still have to eliminate some more logos. Hurt versus Vivek. Hurt's logo made it really far because it's well made and has a nice gimmick with the Republican R. But overall it looks kind of blocky and heavy. That's not a bad thing, don't get me wrong. It could mean strength and down-to-earthness, but personally I just prefer the nimble, sharp and precise design of Vivek's logo. Vivek wins. Biden versus Bingley. One thing I don't like about the Biden-Harris logo is how the second line looks a little squished, especially the A in Harris. I suspected the worst, fearing they committed the crime of transforming a font, but we're all clear there. The font really has been designed that way, so I guess I'm just not a fan of the font. Now let's nitpick Bingley's logo. Apart from the tiny slogan, it has 2 other minor issues. Firstly, the first name uses a gradient from red to a slightly brighter red, but the red parts of the star don't have a gradient, so there's a mismatch. It's a bit unbalanced this way, the star appearing visually heavier because of the darker color. So I just remove the gradient from the name. Secondly, while I love the ligature of the Y and I, it isn't quite perfect. The bottom of the Y is a bit too far on the right, so it doesn't sit where the dot of the I would normally sit. Now, I admit that fixing this would be very hard, because correcting this would create other problems in other places. But overall, there's more to nitpick about Binkley's logo than about Biden's logo. Biden wins. Now, before we go to the final round, I thought it might be interesting to look at some statistics about all the logos we've looked at today. Out of 37 logos, 23 use the colors red and blue in combination. 15 include the election year, 13 include the slogan for president, and 8 have some rendition of the American flag in their logos. So these are the common recipes for a campaign logo. Now, is it a good idea to use the same design principles as everybody else? It depends. It does make it very clear what the logo is for. On the other hand, you might not stand out among all the other logos. What do you think about this? Let's discuss it in the comments. Now the round we've all been waiting for. The logos are known, we've seen them in the rounds leading up to this, so let's recap their most important features. Biden's logo has a bright, friendly shade of blue and a clever typography with the simplified flag as the E. That flag couldn't be used as an independent icon though, which is why the website used a white B as its fav icon. Also, the font looks a bit weird and squished on the second line, but that's just me, maybe. Vivek's logo has a darker shade of blue that makes it seem more serious. Combined with the sharp edges in all the V's, it looks less friendly but more precise. The logo has a flexible vertical design and an independently usable icon that represents the candidate's first name. All in all, the decision is clear. Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of the 2024 logo elections, arbitrarily chosen by me, is Vivek Ramaswamy. Is this when I should say I haven't read into what the candidates stand for and that I surely don't agree with this guy at all?